In 1803, a Sikh diplomat arrived at Tipu Sultan's court carrying a gift, a map of India, hand-drawn on silk, with no British presence anywhere. That map was a lie, a political fiction to flatter the Sultan's ambitions. But within 50 years, it would become the truth. The divergence happened on a single afternoon in a mango grove near Plassey, June 23, 1757. Robert Clive, a 31-year-old clerk turned soldier, marched 3,000 men against the Nawab of Bengal's 50,000-strong army. Outnumbered and outgunned, he relied on a carefully arranged betrayal. The Nawab's commander, Mir Jafar, had promised to hold his troops back at the critical moment. But in this timeline, Jafar's nerve broke early. He saw the British cannons firing, heard the screams, and ordered his men to advance, not to defect, but to fight. By nightfall, Clive was dead, shot from his horse while rallying a retreat. The surviving British limped back to Calcutta, stripped of their artillery and credibility. The East India Company never recovered. Without that victory, without Bengal's tax revenues to fuel a century of conquest, what happens to the most populous region on Earth? The answer is not one India, but three. By the 1780s, the Mughal Empire was a ghost wearing a crown. Real power lay with three rising forces. In the West, the Maratha Confederacy controlled from the Arabian Sea to the Ganges Plain. Their light cavalry could ride from Pune to Delhi in 2 weeks, and their admirals built a navy to challenge Europeans. They dreamed of a Hindu empire, restoring Vijayanagara's glory. But internal rivalries plagued them. The Peshwa in Pune, the Scindia in Gwalior, the Holkar in Indore. Each saw himself as the rightful unifier, spending as much energy fighting each other as expanding. In the south, Tipu Sultan's Mysore became an industrial military state, unprecedented in Indian history. He imported French advisors, established state-owned factories for muskets and cannon, and developed the world's first iron-cased rockets, launched in devastating salvos. He called himself the Tiger of Mysore, and meant it. His throne was carved from ivory and studded with tiger's teeth. His flag bore a sunburst and a Persian inscription. The Lion of God is the conqueror. But the most surprising power emerged in the north. The Sikh Empire under Maharaja Ranjit Singh unified Punjab in the early 1800s, blending Sikh, Muslim, and Hindu traditions under secular administration. Ranjit Singh's army was the best trained in Asia, drilled by European mercenaries, equipped with French artillery, paid on time. He conquered Multan, Peshawar, and Kashmir. He stopped at the Khyber Pass. The Afghans, reeling from civil war, were too weak to stop him. These three powers formed a triangle from the Hindu Kush to the Indian Ocean. They fought wars, signed treaties, spied on each other, and occasionally allied against external threats. But none could defeat the other two decisively. India had become a system of competing states, each modernizing at its own pace, each with its own culture, currency, and vision. If you'd been born in this India, you'd encounter startling diversity and inequality. The Maratha heartland was agrarian and conservative, dominated by Brahmins. Mysore was industrial and meritocratic, with a bureaucracy tracking every citizen's skills. The Sikh Empire was militarized but tolerant, with state-funded schools teaching in Punjabi, Persian, and Arabic. None was a utopia. Each had its cruelties. The question of who would unify India still divides historians. If you'd been born here, would you be a Maratha, Sikh, or Mysorean? Drop your pick in the comments and hit like and subscribe so we can keep exploring timelines like this. By the 1850s, the world had changed. Without British India, The British Empire never achieved global dominance. No Indian army meant no easy victories in China, no Opium Wars, no Hong Kong. British attention shifted to Africa, but colonization proceeded more slowly, brutally, and with less capital. Then came the Great Crisis. In 1857, while our timeline saw the Sepoy Rebellion, this timeline saw a coordinated uprising. The Mughal Emperor, Maratha Peshwa, and Sikh Maharaja united against European trading posts. The French and Portuguese were expelled from Pondicherry and Goa. The British were pushed back to a handful of coastal forts. For the first time in 3 centuries, no European power held territory on the Indian subcontinent. The decades that followed were chaotic. The 3 powers turned on each other, fought attrition wars, and exhausted their treasuries. But they learned a vital lesson. None could dominate the others, and perpetual war cost more than peace. So in 1885, representatives from the Maratha Confederacy, Sikh Empire, and Kingdom of Mysore met in Hyderabad to sign the Treaty of the 3 Crowns. It created a customs union, a mutual defense pact, and a rotating council of 3 emperors, each serving a 5-year term as nominal head of state. It was awkward, bureaucratic, constantly on the verge of collapse, but it worked. By 1900, the Indian subcontinent was the world's 3rd largest economy, behind only the United States and Germany. The Marathas controlled cotton and textiles. The Sikhs dominated wheat and steel. Mysore produced machine tools and rockets. Together, they built a railway network rivaling Europe's, a telegraph system connecting every major city, and a university system attracting scholars from Persia, China, and the Ottoman Empire. When World War I broke out in 1914, the Council of 3 Crowns declared neutrality. The Indian states watched Europe tear itself apart. They sold weapons to both sides, accepted refugees from all sides. When the war ended, they were the only major power that hadn't lost a generation. The 20th century unfolded differently. No partition, no Pakistan, no Bangladesh, no Gandhi. Born in 1869, he became a lawyer in the Sikh Empire's Supreme Court, arguing trade law, not leading a revolution. No nuclear standoff, no Bollywood, no cricket, no British legacy in law or language. Instead, a patchwork India emerged, where you could cross a border and the script changed. The cuisine shifted, the architecture told a different story. Not a single nation, but a civilization of 3 thrones, each proud, each flawed, each convinced that history had chosen them. If you visit this world today, and you cannot, but if you could, you'd find the Treaty of 3 Crowns still in effect. Over a century later, the council meets in Hyderabad, in a palace of white marble and pink sandstone, where 3 flags fly above a single dome. The emperors no longer hold real power. Each Indian state has its own elected parliament, but the symbolism endures. In the museum beneath the palace, preserved in a climate-controlled case, there is a hand-drawn map on silk, the one brought from Lahore to Mysore in 1803. The map that showed an India with no British presence. The map that was a lie until it wasn't. Thank you for exploring this timeline with us. If you want to see what happens when the French win in India instead, comment "New Timeline" and I'll make that story next.